how long are you waiting to be intimate again? Did you tear? Breastfeeding is going really well, but we got off to a rocky start. I definitely experienced baby blues. So today we are sitting down and we are talking about my birth and postpartum experience. I asked you guys on my Instagram to send in any questions that you had about my birth and postpartum experience so far, and you guys sent in some really good questions that I cannot wait to answer. Also, can we just take a moment to realize how long it's been since it's just been me talking to you guys? The last few videos have been vlogs, and then before that my husband and I sat down and filmed a couple videos together. But it feels so good to have it be just me and you. The first question is about birth, and it is, do you have any regrets about your birth? I know it wasn't exactly what you were expecting. So I had posted a video about my ideal birth plan, and it was nothing like what had happened. If you have seen my birth vlog, you will know that I had to get induced at 38 weeks because I had cholestasis. I have no regrets about getting induced, because if I didn't get induced, who would have known what would have happened to my baby? One of the really scary risks with cholestasis is that you can have a stillbirth, which is obviously worst case scenario. So I'm really glad and have no regrets that I got induced. However, I did not want to use an epidural, and I ended up using one. I think that part of the reason I ended up using an epidural is just because I was in the hospital for so long, because my induction took a couple of days and I was falling asleep in between contractions. I was just not feeling my best by the time that I was in active labor. I think that if I was feeling my best, I maybe would have been able to do it without the epidural, but I ended up getting the epidural. But it doesn't really matter because it didn't really work anyway. If you want that full story, go watch my birth vlog. It is quite the tale. The next question is, how is breastfeeding going? So I could give you the short answer and say good, or I could give you the backstory of how I got to the point of it being good, which is very TMI, but I'm sure that you'll want to hear. So basically, when my son was born, I got off to a really good start with breastfeeding. I had a ton of colostrum and my son was latching really well. But then the night before I went home, so my last night at the hospital, my son had one really bad feed where he did not have the greatest latch, and because I was brand new to breastfeeding, I didn't know how to spot a bad latch and how to correct it. So I ended up going home from the hospital with blood blisters all over my left nipple. Which, if you've never had a if you've never had a blood blister before on your nipple, it is extremely painful. And then that night when I got home, it was what's known as the cluster feeding night, where your baby is like cluster feeding to try and bring your milk in. And it was really difficult for me to feed him during that cluster feeding night because I only had one side that didn't have blood blisters on it, and then the other side was so painful that I wanted to scream every time I tried to get him to nurse there. Luckily, I had some colostrum stored from my pregnancy, so if you're pregnant right now, I highly recommend storing a few syringes of colostrum, because you never know. You never know what will happen. So somehow we managed to get through that night of cluster feeding with only one working nipple and a few syringes of colostrum, but it was not easy, I'll tell you that. So the next day I saw my midwife and she prescribed me some really good nipple cream that she said to apply after every feed, and I'll put the name of the nipple cream in the description. And then she also told me to go ahead and get some nipple shields to make breastfeeding less painful while my nipples heal. And she also just talked to me about how to correct a bad latch. And so I used those nipple shields for a little while until I was fully healed. And then my baby wouldn't take my nipple because he got too used to the nipple shields. So then I had to go through this whole process of trying to wean him off of the nipple shields and get him to just take my nipple. But now At 9 weeks postpartum, he is fully off of the nipple shields, and he has been for a while, and breastfeeding is going really well, but we got off to a rocky start. But I wanted to share that full story with you guys so that if you get off to a rocky start or have gotten off to a rocky start with breastfeeding, you will get through it. Just do whatever it takes to feed your baby. Fed is best. What are my cravings? I did not know that postpartum cravings was a thing until the second my son came out. I just wanted sugar. I didn't want sugar my whole pregnancy. I did not crave sweets. And then now I've been craving so many sweets, just like chocolates and like just all kinds of desserts. And as of yesterday, I asked my husband to keep me accountable to having no dessert foods. I really need to stop. I've been having way too much sugar, but that has definitely been a craving. So the next question, I'll answer two questions together. The one question is, how long are you waiting to be intimate again? And the other question is, did you tear? I thankfully did not tear. I believe that was because my husband and I were doing the perineal massages in my third trimester. We had decided to wait until that 6-week appointment, even though I didn't tear, just to make sure that we had the doctors go ahead and that there wasn't going to be any surprises when we were intimate again for the first time. And it's really common to be really nervous before you're intimate again after having a baby, because that area has gone through a lot. And so seriously, if you want to wait longer than 6 weeks, that is totally understandable. There is no rush. You've gone through such a big thing, giving birth, and yeah, it can be very scary. What worked/didn't work for post-birth recovery? Any recommendations of must-haves, whether it be products, food, etc.? I will link everything in the description below that I used for my postpartum recovery, but just off the top of my head, perineal healing foam, perineal spray. My friend gave me some padsicles that she didn't use. I can't really think of anything else. Oh, a peri bottle, super helpful. If I've left anything out that I can't think of off the top of my head, I will link everything in the description. And for food, my mom was with us and she was cooking for us, and then she also froze meals for us so that when she left to go back to New Zealand, there were a bunch of frozen meals in our freezer. And also we had some amazing friends bring us some meals, which was just so unbelievably helpful. So definitely, if you can ask some friends and family members to help prepare some meals for you to freeze for when you're postpartum, that is super helpful. Also, don't forget about snacks. Just having granola bars around, some nuts, just really calorie dense, healthy snacks, because you'll need it, especially if you're breastfeeding. You get really, really hungry. How long after his birth did you allow visitors, and would you recommend that time frame to others? The only people that visited us in the hospital was my in-laws and my mom. I would have let my dad and brother come as well, but they were in New Zealand, and if you don't know, we live in Canada. So they were the only people that came to us at the hospital. And then I think our first visitor was maybe 5 days, a week maybe, after we were home. So we really didn't rush having visitors. I did not want a stream of people coming into the hospital. It's a really overwhelming experience, and you're exhausted, and you're just trying to bond with your baby, learn how to breastfeed, catch up on some sleep while you have that team of people helping you. And I just didn't want to be talking to people and entertaining people. So yeah, we waited probably 5 to 7 days before we had the first visitors come over, and I tried to only have like one set of visitors per day, not a stream of visitors coming in, because yeah, you're just exhausted and trying to navigate life. Would I recommend that time frame to others? It worked for me. But again, everyone's different. If you had a way more physically intense birth than me, like maybe a C-section, or if you had some really bad tearing, maybe you'll want to wait longer. I am an extrovert, so seeing people energizes me, but if you're an introvert, maybe then you'd want to wait longer. it is completely up to the individual. How has your relationship changed with your husband after having your baby? To be honest, I was really nervous about how having a baby would affect my relationship with Joshua, because I know that I'm not the greatest person to be around when I'm sleep deprived. And I knew that I was probably going to be really hormonal as well while being postpartum. But honestly, it has been really, really good. We've had our moments where we're tired and we're stressed and we can bicker a little bit. But ultimately, I feel like having a baby has brought us so much closer to each other. Just seeing him as a dad has just been the most beautiful thing. I just look at him in a whole new way, and I can just see that Joshua was made to be a dad, and our son is so lucky to have him. And throughout the emotional highs and lows of postpartum, he's been really patient with me, really loving towards me. I have not felt alone at all. I've felt really supported by him, and I would just say it's been really good for our relationship. Is motherhood just as you expected, or is it worse or not as bad? Okay, I'm gonna be very honest here. I was kind of nervous about becoming a mom because I thought that it was going it sounds so silly. I thought that it was going to be boring. Part of me just thought, like, man, am I just going to be so bored just sitting at home all day, breastfeeding, changing diapers, like trying to get the baby to stop crying, trying to get the baby to sleep. Like, am I just going to be so bored? But believe me when I tell you, this is the most fun I have ever had in my life. I don't fully understand how it happens, but Josh and I were laughing about it the other day. It's like everything that your baby does, you're just so entertained by it. So like your baby will look at the wall, and instead of being like, oh yeah, like my baby's looking at the wall, you're like, oh my gosh, what are you looking at? Is that the wall? Is that your first time noticing the wall? Like, you just are so entertained by every little thing that your baby does. Like, I don't understand it. Like, it must just be how, like, God's created it, that there is not a boring moment. And even just sitting on the couch and cuddling your baby, it never gets old. Like, it never gets boring. It just feels like the best feeling in the world, having them on your chest and listening to them breathe and make their little sounds while they sleep. And like, it's just not boring at all. So I would say motherhood is way more fun than I expected it to be. Nothing prepared me for how much fun just looking at your baby is. On the topic of birth, I need to go pretty soon because I'm going to my friend's baby shower, which I'm super excited for. That's why I've got a bit of blue on, because she's having a boy, and it's just, oh, I'm so excited. So I'll just answer 2 more questions. Since becoming a mom, have you changed at all? Before I became a mom, there were a couple of bad habits in my life that I had been trying to overcome for quite a while. And I felt kind of hopeless, like I just like keep messing up in these certain areas. And since having my baby, I've been able to overcome those bad habits. I just see my son's face and I just want to make him proud. And I had this revelation before my son was born, and it was that I want to be the woman who I want my son to think I am. That might sound confusing, I'll say it again. I want to be the woman who I want my son to think I am. So basically, I don't want to put up a facade in front of him and make him think that I'm this amazing person, but then behind closed doors, I'm doing things or saying things or acting in a way that I would be embarrassed if he witnessed that. I want to actually be the person who I want him to think I am. And that thought, I believe, came from God, because it has just stuck with me so much, and it's helped me so much to overcome, like I said, bad habits that I had been struggling with for a long time. And I'm just so grateful for my son for helping me with that, even though he has no idea. He's just a 2-month-old baby. But I just feel really grateful for how I've been able to overcome those things. by being a mom. Lastly, baby blues are very common. Have you experienced that at all? I definitely experienced baby blues. It started about 4 days after I gave birth, and it lasted probably a week and a half. I kind of just became aware of the circle of life. That you have your baby and you love them so much, and then they grow up and then they leave you, and then they have their own family and they have their kids who they love so much, and then their kids grow up and then they leave them. And it just made me so sad that my baby's gonna leave me one day. And I just cried about it every single day. I mean, I'm literally crying about it now, but I don't think about it as much anymore. And then also another reason why I was sad once my son was born, even though I was so happy to have him with me, I don't know why, but I really mourned having him in my belly and having that closeness. And now he was out, and now I had to share him with the world. And now I have to watch him grow, and time slowly take him away from me. It's such a negative way to view it. But just with those postpartum hormones, I was just really feeling that. And my husband had to hold me a lot and reassure me a lot and encourage me a lot. And my mom was amazing for that as well. And my friends were amazing for supporting me through that. But then eventually, you know, your hormones settle and you start to feel like yourself more and more every day. And so now I don't really cry anymore, except when I talk about when I used to cry, then I cry. Anyways, I'm going to leave the video there. If you guys want a part 2, comment down below and I can film a part 2, because I am only 2 months postpartum and I know that the postpartum journey is not a short one. But thank you so much, you guys, for watching this video, and I cannot wait to see you guys in next week's video. I love you. Bye.